I got the chance to sit down with Jenn Giles, a registered dietitian who has a great story about how she started triathlon training and what she's up to now and her take on nutrition. So here is who is Jenn Giles. Jenn, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Awesome. I want to start with just like what sports and athletics mean to you as a person. Obviously, you have a background in athletics and now sports nutrition, but what does like being an athlete mean to you?
Wow, that's a great question. I think overall it means everything to me, first of all, because I think sports is a reflection of life. And I think that the time and the dedication and the perseverance that it takes to be an athlete at any level, you know, no matter what level you're at, is reflective upon your personality, and you carry that over into other aspects of your life. So I really think it's kind of the foundation where we learn all the tools we need to be the best person we can be.
Yeah. When did you realize that like sport and life like have this huge crossover?
I think I realized it probably in my 20s. So maybe a little bit later than most athletes, because I kind of took it for granted until then, until I really was training for my first marathon, where I figured out, wow, this takes a lot of time and dedication, and I have to sacrifice a lot for this goal. And then it dawned on me like, wow, this is kind of like life.
Yeah.
The first time it really hit me.
Yeah, well, you're not alone in that, because it was probably right around my early 20s when I started to realize that too. I was like late college, just out of college, and I'm like, wow, I've learned a lot from running and going through, you know, sporting organizations and just relationships and being a leader and all that kind of stuff. So, so why did you then choose to go into sports nutrition as opposed to, you know, kind of a general nutritionist or dietitian or field?
Yeah, I think it came down to that. Like in my 20s, I actually was on my path to medical school, believe it or not. And I was training for marathons. And I thought, you know, if I go to medical school, this is a little bit selfish of me, but if I go to medical school, I will not have time to train for marathons. And it's what I love most. And then the more I got into making the connection between food and performance, I thought, you know what, I figured it out. I've figured out many different ways since then, but I thought I figured it out then.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I can really help people figure this out. And I kind of knew that was my calling, quote unquote.
Sure.
So I switched gears and I thought, you know, if I go into this field, I know I'll always stay active. I'll always eat well. I'll always have this focus, and I will have an impact on others being able to do that. So that was really my light bulb moment.
Cool. So where did you get your start in athletics then? Like, obviously the love had to come from somewhere. Was it your parents? Was it like you just friends that were involved in stuff, or how do you like get started in sport?
It's interesting because I mean, youth athletics is, you know, town sports, all that kind of stuff. I was involved in soccer, basketball, swimming, softball. I kind of did it all as a young athlete, but I wasn't super passionate about it. I was kind of just doing it because everybody else did. And then high school came and I played softball, and I really did love softball, and I swam and I loved swimming, but I just never was good enough, to be honest, to do it in college. So went on to college, and something dawned on me in college, probably after that freshman 15/40, somewhere in between there. And I grabbed a pair of shoes. I went to the running store, grabbed a pair of running shoes because I had just, you see people running out all the time. And I thought maybe I can do that. Maybe that will just get me back in shape and blah, blah, blah. Like I knew there was an athlete inside me somewhere. I just didn't know how to get her out any better. Like I knew it was better, but I just couldn't make the connection. So long story short, I got the pair of running shoes. I was on vacation with my family, and I went out and I ran. Just ran. I didn't care about form, speed, anything. I just ran, and I made it 3/4 of a mile. Before I think I pulled a little muscle in my back. 19 years old. Nobody should pull a muscle when they're 19 years old. And so I had to walk home, like head down. And for some crazy reason, I put the sneakers on again the next day and the next day and the next day. And somewhere over the course of the next couple of weeks, I got that runner's high, and I just thought, oh, I love this. This is so great.
Yeah.
And I hadn't changed anything about my nutrition at that point. And a couple months into it, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to change my nutrition. I wonder if that would make me better. And so I read like Runner's World magazines and every article I could get my hands on. And I made small changes along the way. And that kind of lit my fire because I started to get better. And that's when I kind of said, you know what, I really am an athlete and I'm going to focus more on this. And that's the beginning of my story.
Cool. Your story, like, I think it's a similarity between a lot of people where they start to take a sport more seriously. And the first thing they do is up their training.
Right.
And then eventually you get to a point where like, okay, I can't train anymore because I can't recover from the training that I'm doing. So where is the next step? And then that's usually the light bulb goes off. It's my nutrition. Like, how do I fuel my body better to do better workouts and stuff? But before we get into that, just contrasting your sports nutrition before you kind of went through college, learned all this stuff, to now, take us to, high school you. Where were you at as far as nutrition goes?
Yeah, so I said I played softball, and I was my biggest sports nutrition snack on the sidelines was Cool Ranch Doritos. No joke. And
they're good.
This is in the 80s. I mean, I probably haven't had them since the 80s either. But yeah, I mean, that's what we would do. And it did not even dawn on me that was not a great sports nutrition snack.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the 80s or if it was just my mindset or we didn't have the knowledge back then or what, but that's what we would do. No wonder I wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't feeling my body well at all.
Yeah.
Before swim practice, we would have a hot dog truck pull up to high school right up, after school before practice, and we would down hot dogs from the hot dog truck before we get in the pool. And I have memories of like burping up hot dog during some practice, which is awful. So, I mean, there was a stark change. And then freshman year in college, it's all about pizza and beer and going to the vending machines for Snickers bars during studying for exams and whatnot. So yeah, there was minimal thought on my part about food and performance. I just didn't think about it at all.
So then when you did start thinking about it, I would imagine it wasn't hard to find places where you could make, little adjustments at least right away.
It's interesting because I think the world is a lot easier now to make such changes. I mean, this was in the early 90s, where it dawned on me that I had to make some changes, and there wasn't a lot of healthy options out. There wasn't places where you can get smoothies or acai bowls or, chopped salad places. There just wasn't. And I was living on campus. So it was a lot of salad bars, baked potatoes, grilled chicken, and I was just kind of piecing together all the information, but I didn't have a lot offered to me. So I kind of went through the motions until I was, living off campus and had more control over my food intake and grocery store shopping, and that I really started to put together nutrients.
Got it.
Much better.
Yeah. Cool. So
definitely a process.
Yeah. And we'll get into more kind of like the ins and outs of that here, but I want to just touch on like, what are your training is like now? I know you do triathlons, marathons, or like, what are you kind of focused on now as an athlete?
Yeah. So like I said, like in my 20s, I was training for marathons primarily. Half marathons. I would do a bunch of 10Ks too. And then in my very end of my 20s, probably 28 or 29, I got a little burnt out from all the running, and I decided to go back to my swim roots, hop in the pool and swim. And then I said to my husband, let's just buy bikes and start biking. Neither one of us biked before.
Yeah.
And a friend said, let's do a triathlon. So we did. And the first little mini triathlon we did, we got hooked. And it was probably a little before 30, right? And we just did them all the time, everywhere we traveled to do tries. And really ever since then, that's been my true love. I mean, I'm a runner. Foundationally, I'm a runner, and it's probably the sport I'm best at and I feel most comfortable doing. Like if you give me a choice, I'll go for a run. But the world of triathlon, I think, has made me a stronger runner. It's made me more well balanced. It's prevented a lot of injuries, I think, and it's just really fun, and I love it. So I'm still super passionate about triathlon.
Yeah. How, like, for me, triathlon seems one of the most time intensive sports to train for, because you got 3 of them and 2 of them are like non-impact, you know, so you can do them a lot. You know, so how do you balance like training and, you know, your job, your family? Like how do you do all that with triathlon training?
Well, some days are easier than others. And it's a lot of finding the little pieces of time throughout your day or throughout your week. You know, I mean, I've gone to so many of my kids' sports practices and just run around the field or run around the hockey rink, or, you know, just things like that if I don't have enough time, or it's getting up early, or it's working out in the evenings. It's never real consistent, to be honest, which is probably not great, but I have to work out when I can, whenever I can. So I always just I have my backpack of workout clothes in my car at all times, just in case I can sneak around. So it's really time consuming. I think a lot of it depends too on the distances. Like I think the years I was training for Ironman, like a full distance triathlon, were very time consuming and definitely overwhelming to have kids and a job and all that other kind of stuff. I think the shorter races are manageable. You know, it's not, it's consistent training every day, but it's not overwhelming.
Sure. And once you have like years of training under your belt, I'm sure like the shorter distances, and in my experience, like you don't have to do this huge build up for them. It's just kind of like a stay where you are in shape, and then maybe a block of training where you're like, okay, I have time in my life now to kind of focus on this, so I'm gonna do that before the race and stuff. So
100%. It's cumulative. You're right. The training is cumulative. You know that. So the more years you put into it, you know you have that foundation to pull upon. So if you slack off for a couple days or a couple weeks, then it's still there. It's like riding a bicycle. It comes right back.
Exactly. Yeah. I had like the biggest indicator of cumulative training that I like was kind of blown away by in myself was, so I started running really as like going into 5th grade, the summer of going into 5th grade, because my brothers, they went out for cross country. I just like, I'm going to do what my brothers do or whatever, you know, and kind of started running in more of a structured form rather than just, you know, on the playground or, you know, football or whatever, backyard stuff. So I've been really running since then to the end of college. The end of college, I was so burnt out that I just like stopped running for a while. I was running once a week. I would do long runs with my team, my alumni team at that point, once a week. So I would do like, you know, 18 to 20 miles a week, all on Saturday.
Wow. Okay.
I kept that up until like through the summer, till the weather got bad. Didn't train for like literally no running, no cardio, nothing for 3 months. And then I got asked to be on a 4x4 in late January or early February. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do a 4x4, I might as well enter in the mile too. And so I just entered in the slow heat and, you know, whatever, ran the mile, most painful mile of my life, mind you. But I still broke 5 minutes. You know, I was a 4:10 miler in college, but I was able to run like a 4:54 without training, won the heat. And I was just thinking, like, there's people that were like in the middle of their training that I beat, and I hadn't trained for like 3 months. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that to like 12 years of training got me to the point where I could take 3 months off and still, you know, perform decently. So
yeah, that's an amazing example of what your body can do, right?
Yeah. And then I'm coming back into training for Spartan races and obstacle course races, and like I'm not starting from zero, you know. But, yeah. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent on that, but I want to get into
that story.
You had mentioned that you had kids during your training. You know, you've gone through 4 pregnancies, and now, you know, obviously 4 little ones as well. How did you balance training with pregnancy? Because, and just a, you know, disclaimer, this is a selfish question because my wife is due in March. So we're just kind of like trying to navigate how she's going to come back to running post pregnancy.
So she's a runner as well.
Yeah, that's how we met. We met in college as both runners. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I ran through my first pregnancy. I ran through my whole pregnancy. You know, I was just determined to make it through the whole pregnancy, and I did. I ran up until probably the last week or two, where it just didn't feel so good anymore, and then I walked. And I actually walked like 4 miles the day I had her.
Oh wow!
So that was great. I was just really gung ho. The other ones I scaled back a little bit. Your body feels a little bit different, or you just don't feel the need. So my second and third, I probably ran up until like 7 months, and then I walked. And then my fourth, maybe 6 months, and then I walked. But my fourth, I really swam so much more.
Sure.
So I just traded sports. But, you know, it made me feel good. And it was almost like I couldn't get through the day without moving, because it made me feel normal. When you're pregnant, you feel very abnormal. There's an alien inside your body, and, you know, you're tired, you're hungry, you don't feel good, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I did it to feel good. I wanted to sweat a little bit. I just wanted to feel good. If I had a run and a shower, I would feel great. That would be a good day. So I just felt the need to do it. And I feel like it made my pregnancies healthier. And I want to think it made my kids healthier. Who knows if that's really true, but it do the extra oxygen consumption makes your kids healthier. So I'm going to go with that.
Awesome. What about like after birth? Like what was kind of the timeline as far as what recovery did you need? Did it vary from kid to kid? And how did you come back?
Yeah, another great question, because I was super worried about that too. You know, as runners, you're like, think of it like an injury. Every time you get injured, you're like, when can I run? When can I run? Can I run through the injury? So I remember asking my doctor, like, how long do I have to take off before I can run? And he's like, wait, at least 10 days until you get out and walk. And I was like, I'm not waiting 10 days. And I think I did wait like 6 days, and I couldn't walk. And like, I think I took a couple steps and I was like, forget this, and went back. You're beat up. Your body's beat up. Yeah. So after 10 or 15 days, I think I went out and just walked, probably for the first couple weeks. And then as soon as I felt ready to kind of jog, I did. But it takes a while. And that was one of the hardest times for me, especially after my first pregnancy, because I didn't understand that it was going to take a while. And, you know, you're really running super slow. I think I was running like 11-minute miles or something. So you're depressed because you're running so slow on the slug, and you get back. And in hindsight, I would say 3 or 4 months, and I was back to like the equal pace that I was before her. Cool. And I think I got better with each kid. Like I think that after that first initial, like, oh my gosh, I'm a slug. And the second one, I came back a little sooner. Third one sooner, because you just learn. Yeah. And again, I kind of had the crutch of all 3 sports, so I knew I could swim.
Sure, you could do one or the other.
Yeah, it was easier on my body. The running was the last to come back, to be honest. It took the longest for my running speed to come back.
Yeah, I mean, it's impactful. Run. We actually just talked about this on I can't remember if that podcast is going to be the one before this or the one after this, but with face standing, we talked about just how, like, with every step you're putting in 3 times like your body weight and force into your foot, then, you know, up the chain and stuff. So like comparative to swimming, where it's like, oh, you're floating, you know, it's very
push yourself a little bit more. Yeah. An interesting thing too that your wife may be interested in is, I was actually faster after having my second baby than I was before my first baby. Like my speed, and I was in my early 30s, so I don't know if age has anything to do with it. But yes, I was a better runner after having children. And I have this argument with women all the time. Like, I think it's because after you have a baby, you think, I could do anything. Man, if I did that,
yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, if you're talking about like pain tolerance, you know, especially like in a sport like running, swimming, biking, it's really about, okay, your fitness level, but also then your pain tolerance level. Like how far are you willing to push your own body into this like pain cave, which is a phrase I stole from an Olympian rower.
I hope her story inspired you to get out the door, start training, or continue to train as is. So if you found this content helpful, hit subscribe, follow along with more great content for the science of sports recovery.